First of all, thanks to David and Ruthie Lehman. They've replenished our supply of talaisim with new talaisim, including a talis cover. Thank you very much. So when you use it, follow Zev's model and just fold it up and put it back when we're done. Decorum.
Welcome back to Jeffrey.
Hold on the dotted line. Thank you for the dollars.
Erev Tov, everyone. The Ramban at the end of Chumash Mos, this week's parsha, the Ramban says that the end of Chumash Mos is meant to parallel the situation that existed at the end of Chumash Bereishis. At the end of Chumash Bereishis, the story of the Ovos and the Imahos, our forefathers and mothers. So in their homes, the Shechina was present. We hear by Sora Imenu, the famous Medrash, Anon Kosher, that there was an atmosphere, an ambience. We walked into the house. It was special because the Shechina was present. And the same was true in the house of Yitzchak and Rivka and Yaakov and Leah, Bilhah and Zilpah. So at the end of Chumash Bereishis, we are, so to speak, in that situation where there is a palpable presence of spirituality and of the Ribono Shalom Kaviyachol present in the midst of human beings. Jewish people go into Egypt and they lose that presence. First they lose it out of affluence, and then they lose it out of slavery. And the feeling that they are special people has departed from them. So even though they retain customs that existed, their language, their names, even to a certain extent their dress, but the palpable feeling, the tangible feeling that Kaviyachol Ribono Shalom is present with them, that didn't exist anymore amongst them. Then what happens is that Moshe arrives on the scene, and Moshe restores through the series of Makot and through the miracles of the Exodus from Egypt and of Kriyat Yamsuf. Moshe restores the presence, Kaviyachol of Ribono Shalom, amongst the Jewish people. Zeh Keli ve'anveyu. It says they pointed. To them it was real. It's not a lecture or a shiur, or it's a thought process. It's a reality in front of them. And because of that, now they are prepared to receive the Torah. Naasev and Ishma, and they have crowns on their head. What the crowns looked like, it's not clear, and what is meant by it, but it's a presence. Every Jew had a presence of Kaviyachol, heaven, with him or her. And it's reinforced by the miracles, the mon that fell every day that they ate, by the well of Miriam that accompanied them. They're well aware that, the Ribono Shalom is present. Then they doubt. Moshe's not around anymore. And they say, Hayesh Hashem bonu imoyin. Is God here? We don't know. They don't feel it anymore. And when they don't feel it, so then they can make an ego, because you got to furnish the house with something. And if the presence of Hashem is not there, it's not real to them, so then they have to have something, so then it becomes Eilelecha Yisrael. I remember that when, and it's a long time ago, I was in Miami Beach, the Rav. So somebody was refurnishing his house. And he called me up and he said, listen, I have a Sefer Torah in my house, and I have a beautiful Oren Kodesh. And he said, and we just bought, I know a large amount of money, he told me, like an enormous television set. And he says, can I put the Oren Kodesh in the same room with the television set? So I told him, that shaila is not brought in halacha. I can't find it in the Shulchan Aruch. But my sensitivity tells me that somehow, they don't go together. But people don't realize that. People don't feel that way. So they create the ego. Because of the ego, there are terrible consequences. Thousands of Jews are killed. All of the Jewish history is altered because of it. So if we adopt the opinion of Rashi, so then the kapora for the ego is the building of the Mishkan. And by the construction of the Mishkan, eventually what happens when it's all over, and that's what the Ramban means, that the Yom Chanukas Moshe, the Yom Hoki Moshe Samishkan. So it says, so the Shechina came and descended and enveloped the Mishkan. And now the Shechina was back again as a tangible, palpable part of Klal Yisrael. So that at the end of Shmos, they at least got back to where they were at the end of Bereshis. Part of the idea of the Ramban, as pointed out in many Sforim, is a human factor that we're all well aware of. Let's say there's a man and wife living in a home, and they're disagreeing on a certain issue. And their disagreement is very strong. So they're angry at each other. They say cross words one to another, or perhaps worse than that, they don't say anything to each other. And the parents of a husband or the wife come to visit. So when they come to visit, so you can't say cross words to each other anymore because there are guests in the house. So you have to resume a more natural relationship, the previous relationship. And you have to talk to each other. You don't want that the guests should realize that the hosts are quarreling. That's human nature. And therefore their behavior is better. So Forshim say, if that's the case with human beings, if you have human beings as guests, so to speak, in the house, so then you have to be on a certain level of behavior. So if you feel kaviochel that the Ribono Shalom is in the house, so alachas kama v'kama, how much more so do you have to attempt to achieve a certain level of behavior? And that's why we say in the bracha, you know, Ava ve'achva, shalom v'reus, the whole list of nice things right by the chuppah. It's enough to say, have a long and happy life together. We have to list all of these things. The reason is that they should realize that there's a guest in their house. It's not only them. That's part of the problem in our world today, that everything is only me or us. It's the way we want it. And if that's the case, then there's no room for guests in the house because guests interfere. But the advantage of the guest in the house is that it softens the house. It mutes the quarrels. It changes the atmosphere, creates new attitudes. And that was the whole idea when Chazal said by Sora Onon Kosher Al Oel, that there was a cloud there. What does it mean there was a cloud there? Avram and Sora always felt that they had a guest in the house. So therefore the house has to have a different quality to it. I also remember that when I was doing Miami Beach, so my wife and I, we had constant guests all the time, especially in the winter. People would come and my wife would prepare wondrous meals and everything was, you know, and sometimes the children in the house had a moment of feeling slighted because of the fact we're taking care of the guests. I remember one of our daughters mentioned she was 4 years old. She said, "Mama, are children also guests?" That's a good question. And because of that, this whole idea that the Ribono Shalom Kaviyachol is in one's house, that's the game changer. That's what makes it different. That's what inspires. So that was the idea of the Mishkan. I mentioned also the Migdash Shachanti B'Salchom. I live in their house. If I live in their house, so then their house will be different automatically, because that's human nature. So that's what the Ramban emphasizes here, that the purpose of the Mishkan, which is the conclusion of Chumash Shmos, is to achieve the effect that the homes of the Avos at the end of Chumash Bereishis achieved. And that the Ribono Shalom, so to speak, should be part of the house. And if that's the case, then we're talking about the Osel Migdash B'Shachanti B'Socham. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Rotza Gadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakov Tzitz Yisrael V'Ficha Chim V'Lohem Torah Mitzvot Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Aman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yazir.